Just like their internal combustion engines relations, the value of a plug-in vehicle is inversely proportional to the number of miles it's driven in its life. And that means that if you're on the lookout for an affordable, low-cost electric vehicle, then the chances are you're going to be looking at buying an electric car with a higher than average odometer reading, especially if you're looking at vehicles which originally had a very high sticker price or have only been around for a few years. If you're willing though, as illustrated by Fred Lambert over at Electrek this week, it's possible to get a really good deal. He just purchased a Tesla Model X with nearly 500,000 miles on the clock for around $30,000. But just because you can, should you? The short, caveated answer is yes, because very little can go wrong with an electric car, even a high mileage one. But the long, more comprehensive answer is maybe. The answer does depend on the vehicle, its history, and where you live, as well as how much research you're willing to do. Let's look at the vehicle first. Although electric vehicles are, for the most part, far more reliable with higher mileage than internal combustion engine vehicles, remember electric cars have very few moving parts that can wear out, there are some caveats to bear in mind. The first thing you should always do is to get a health check on the car's battery pack. Ask the seller for the car's service history and when the battery was last checked out by an authorised service personnel. A car with a regular service history is going to be a much safer bet than one without, doubly so with a higher mileage car. And while electric cars don't need a lot of service, a car that has seen regular servicing and checks is always preferable. High mileage electric cars with passive air-cooled battery packs, the Nissan Leaf is the most common of these, are likely to have more age-related degradation than cars with active liquid-cooled battery packs. And while the jury's out on rapid charging and longevity, it's useful to know how frequently the car has been rapid charged in its life. Some cars, like the Nissan Leaf, keep a counter of this information, and if you are willing to spend a little money on something like Leaf Spy and a relevant dongle, there's a video I did on it in the show notes below. You can get that information really easily, as well as figure out from that the battery health. For the most part though, I would stay clear of high mileage electric cars with passively air-cooled battery packs, especially if they've been rapid charged a lot, have noticeable degradation already, or are from parts of the world where summer temperatures are very hot, extremely hot for extended periods of time. But it's horses for courses, because if you only need a car that can do 50 miles a day and you don't mind dealing with a degraded battery pack, plenty of great deals can be had if you opt for a car like the Nissan Leaf. Personally, I've owned two and I loved them both, even though battery degradation was ultimately the reason we got rid of the second one. While we're on the subject of batteries, remember that cars with higher capacity battery packs out of the factory are less likely to have issues at higher mileages than cars with smaller capacity battery packs. Why? Well, it's just physics. Larger packs are cycled less frequently, and thus the cell level wear on a larger capacity car with 500,000 miles is a lot less than a small capacity car with the same odometer reading. Another point to remember is that most liquid-cooled battery packs seem to have a pretty long life. My partner and I own two Chevrolet Bolts, one with nearly 90,000 miles on the clock and one with nearly 50,000 miles on the clock. And range hasn't dropped on either since new, not noticeably at least. The same is true for friends with other EVs, Tesla and non-Tesla with liquid-cooled battery packs. Before we go on to after sales and service, let's take a small detour into high mileage effects on other parts of your car. Some cars, like early Tesla Model S's, can have transmission issues at higher mileages. And no, I don't mean gearbox, I mean the bits that take the power from the motor and get it to the wheels. So it's always good to check owners' forums to see how other owners are getting on with their high mileage cars. I mean, it's really easy to spot if there's a problem that's prevalent across a particular vehicle at higher mileage if you spend a while looking at an owner's forum. But this all comes down to how much research you're willing to do, which I'm going to cover a little later on. Next, let's look at after-sales service and support. Teslas, for example, are really robust in this regard, unless you happen to live a really long way from a Tesla service centre. But in some parts of the world, owning certain vehicles, higher mileage or not, can cause you severe problems at service time. Some so-called compliance cars aren't going to be a good buy if you live outside of the original areas where they were sold, as dealerships have to undergo training to work on a specific car before they can officially work on them. In the case of some models like the Fiat 500e or second generation Toyota RAV4 EV, which happens to be notorious for breaking down, it's almost impossible to get dealers' support outside of launch markets. And even if you live in those launch markets, sometimes support is still hard. Essentially, if the high mileage EV you're looking at has a local dealership where said models are still sold, well, you're golden. With very little to go wrong on higher mileage cars, the chances are you'll be okay for sales and service. The other caveat is models that were once sold but no longer sold. In this case, I'm going to use the Chevrolet Volt in Europe. While owning a Chevrolet Volt in the US is no problem at all, because most dealers can at least work on the car or have it shipped somewhere else it can be worked on, when Chevrolet pulled out of Europe 5 years ago, it left a lot of cars without proper after-sales support and service. I owned a 2013 Chevy Volt in the UK that became increasingly difficult to have work done on it because basic servicing, and Chevy hadn't even bothered to set that up when it left the country. A high mileage Volt in the US is absolutely no problem, but in Europe, I would think twice. As usual though, doing your research is essential, which brings me to doing your research. Knowing your potential high mileage car is a must. Like I've already said, spending some time on owners' forums is essential because every single electric car, while far better at high mileage than a comparable internal combustion engine vehicle, will have some form of age-related issues. Some, like those early Model S examples I gave, may have less robust transmission. Some, like my Chevrolet Bolt EV, are known for having suspension woes. We've had a couple with our cars. And some just suffer from interiors that are less robust and more prone to wearing than perhaps some other cars on the market. There is one simple thing I'd recommend to everyone though when looking at a high mileage electric car: manufacturer's warranties or third-party coverage. In the case of Fred's Model X, it happens to be a car that was sold with an unlimited mile 8-year drivetrain warranty, which protects him from any issues for another 4 years. And if your car is high mileage, the chances are that the standard warranty that your vehicle had has probably run out. In that case, it's always worth considering a dealer-prepared warranty or perhaps a third-party warranty, but only if the car you're considering has known issues that pop up as they age. Our very own Kate Walton Elliott was so glad she got hers an extended warranty, her BMW i3 that is, and she says it's already paid for itself several times over, with issues related to charging, climate conditioning and telematics all taken care of under warranty. Sadly, I don't think any protect against battery pack degradation though, although as I've said, if you stick with liquid cool, it seems to be the way to go if you're worried about that. So there you have it. High mileage, pre-loved EVs are a thing, and if you're willing to be patient, a perfect car may just come into your life, be it a bargain sub 10k car or a steal of a deal on a vehicle normally 2 or 3 times out of your price range. Remember to do your research, ask questions, and of course, make that test drive before you buy. But for what it's worth, I think high mileage EVs are a far safer bet than a traditional high mileage gasoline car. That's it. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you next time.